subject of inflation. Mr. Barrett, you are precisely correct, sir. Most of the prices that we pay for the goods and services, they're not going to drop because inflation from the past is already built in. No president, including Mr. Trump, is capable of coming into office and wave a magic wand and automatically bring prices back to the level that they were when he left office. It don't work that way. Biden's 19% inflation is built in, which is a major reason why I've been so critical of the way he mismanaged the economy. I mean, what frustrates me, though, is I believe there are a lot of Americans that may not understand the last effects of the past rampant inflation or whatever that Barry described. And as you said yesterday, Mr. Harry, this is one of the nasty realities of inflation. And while we need to have a president whose policies don't promote inflation, Mr. Trump's performance on inflation began when he entered his second term. And thus far, by the way, in his second administration, inflation data has been excellent. In fact, it dropped to a 4-year low of 2.3% in April. But one of the reasons today, and this is what really disturbs me, one of the reasons today that young people cannot afford to buy a home is because of what took place during Jimmy Carter's administration. Because of rampant inflation, a $100,000 home there all of a sudden cost $140,000, $175,000, and that increase is still built into the prices of homes today. It never goes away, and that is a sad reality of inflation. Now, yesterday we heard a caller say that these countries overseas are not going to come into agreement with Trump concerning fair trade and tariffs. Well, I want to ask this gentleman this. Sir, which planet do you live on? For God's sake, in just a few months already, the following countries have already signed on with their tariff agreements. Japan, the United Kingdom, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, Pakistan. Then there's the Euro Union. Oh, my goodness. Listen to this, folks. That consists of Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, the Republic of Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malta, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Sweden. Once again, I say, which planet do you live on? You see, the problem is not with President Trump and tariff agreements. The problem is with Trump haters. They don't want him to reach these agreements. And I'm going to tell you something this morning. I don't have any apology to make on this. That when you do not wish for this president to succeed in order to take care of our own country, you don't care about this country. A $2 trillion trade gap that has existed between the United States and other countries for years because no other president has had the courage to step in and get this mess solved. Then there's the accusation that companies are not going to move their plants in the United States because of Trump. Once again, wrong. It's already taking place. Honda expected to produce the next generation Civic hybrid model in Indiana, potentially avoiding tariffs by shifting production from Mexico. Then you have the Hyundai planning to localize production in the United States and potentially build a new steel plant in Louisiana to supply materials for EVs. And then you've got the General Motors, my goodness, investing $4 billion in U.S. manufacturing plants to increase production of both gas and electric vehicles. Then you've got the semiconductors, for instance, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, expanding its investment in Arizona by an additional $100 billion, bringing its total U.S. investment to $165 billion. And then there's Eli Lilly and Company planning to more than double the United States manufacturing investment since 2020, exceeding $50 billion. And GE Aerospace investing $1 billion in manufacturing across 16 states, including 5,000 new jobs. And then just yesterday, Apple announced that it's going to invest an additional $100 billion in their U.S. operation. That, by the way, that's on top of $500 billion that the company announced in February. And they're part of the effort to centralize more of Apple's supply chain to the United States, which is a key target of Mr. Trump's tariff agenda. Now, why is all of this taking place under the Trump administration? I'll tell you exactly why. It's because the policies of this administration do not run companies away from the homeland. Companies are seeking to avoid tariffs to producing goods within the United States. Yes, companies are adapting to new political realities and the potential for changes in trade policies. All of this is already happening under Mr. Trump. Of course, the liberals are going to deny everything I've said. Well, okay, you can get on the radio and lie about it or whatever, but that doesn't make it, untrue. You're living in a state of denial, blinded by the hate you have for the president. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Harry. God bless you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. 222-9224. One of the interesting things to me about the economy is that if you want the economy to be good, there are plenty of things for you to look at that will tell you that the economy is good. Now, if you want the economy to be bad, that's usually a political thing.
Good morning, Harry. Hope your morning's going well.
Doing great.
Well, I'll tell you what, I got a situation I want to talk about today. I'm glad that we have the medical abilities and facilities that we have around us, but I'm fixing to have I'm fixing to have my second knee replacement, and the older we get on insurance, and we get on good insurance, and I feel like sometimes some of the medical referrals and testing and all, and Barry might can add to this because he was in the insurance business. But I feel like the whole lot of the medical end of the facilities, they push people to do stuff that don't necessarily need to be done just to collect the insurance money. I don't know how you feel. And I've talked to a bunch of people that said, yeah, you get caught up in that loop, you can't get out. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, see, when they changed, and this has been a long time ago, when Medicare decided if they had to figure out a way to bring expenses down, they decided they would assign amounts of payment to things so that it would be uniform and that every hospital everywhere would know what that number is. Well, because hospitals were depending on a different number than what Medicare was giving them, they had to come up with new and exciting ways to get paid. For example, I'll give you an example of one. When Medicare stopped paying for a yearly physical, the comprehensive physical, they wanted to go to a health examination or something. They called it something else. Well, the doctors who were getting these physicals, they had to figure out a way that they could get the money from the physical without doing the physical that the Medicare said that they couldn't do. That's just one of the examples. There's another one that I think is insidious. Is when you get an X-ray done. One of the ways that they get more money out of this X-ray is they charge you. The doctor looks at the X-ray and charges you for it. But the people that did the X-ray, you get a bill later from them because they looked at it too. And I'm going, well, I didn't need for them to look at it. The only person I needed to look at it was the doctor. But you still end up having to pay for that. They're trying to come up with ways to get money beyond the system. And I think sometimes that creates some really strange payments. Really does.
Well, I mean, it's puzzling to me because I had one knee done, and which the insurance paid for. The knee was $65,000, and I'm telling you, I know it costs something to keep a hospital going, and it's come from Moses Cone Health and Alamance Regional, and they're talking about building a new one in Mebane and everything, but insurance companies, where is all that money? I know we pay in so much, but where does all that extra money come in to support, the insurance companies? Maybe Barry can say, call in and talk about that.
Well, it's awfully expensive. When you say extra money, there's not an awful lot of extra money because the healthcare is so expensive in this country. Our country has some of the most expensive healthcare there is anywhere. In other countries, it's a whole lot less expensive. You're listening to WBAG, Burlington Graham. Tony, you're on Talk Line.
Yeah, Harry, I want to talk about housing, but first of all, my daughter is a hospice nurse, and as a senior, I realize how much pain you can be in just being a senior, and this makes it possible to get pain control medicine. You know, you can get all the marijuana you want and other street drugs and things like that, but try as a senior citizen just getting something to control pain and for end-of-life care if you're in pain. I think that is totally ridiculous. That's one thing that really bugs me. But, you know, these pharmacists in West Virginia really pushed opium and things like opioids and things like that, where there's a illegal drug problem, but the people that really need it can't get it for some reason.
Well, you know, it's always the same thing. There are a few bad apples that ruin it for everybody else. And, you know, those painkillers, for the most part, are so addictive, and you know, everybody's scared to death to prescribe them very much because they don't want to end up getting in any trouble. So it's the bad actors that ruin it for everybody.
Well, where they mostly get it from is veterinarian medicine, believe it or not. But anyway, getting into housing, everything, I see where Greensboro was going to offer $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. And I find that really interesting because a lot of people have a large down payment and they're being pushed into double wides. They go to try to buy a house, the bank will not okay the house. And it was a nightmare during COVID because you had all these rental companies and things buying up these houses. You go to look at it online and somebody was putting in a bid, buying them up, and now there's like a glut of housing. Down in Florida, there's a glut of housing and everything. But if you know, even get that first-time home buying assistance, there's a lot of people, like I said, that for some reason they're being pushed into double wides, where other people that are at poverty level are getting the two-story homes with the two-car garage. And often they come with HOAs, and then if they, you know, do something the HOA don't like, they get these huge fees and lose their home that way. Not just, you know, because they can't keep up the payments or something like that. So I think that's something we really need to look into the housing market, what is going on in regards to that, as well as if you get a double wide, the interest is very high, and even if it's at the regular home rate of whatever, I don't know what interest is today. I got my home at a low interest rate, about 2%, but you know, today I think it's up to 7 or something like that. I don't know. I haven't looked for a long time. But you know, your interest, you could pay more in interest than what your home is worth. This is the first time land has went crazy. So the land does lock in some value, but you know, if you lose your home, you lose that land. And I would like to see something in Congress where you would never lose the value of your land. No matter what, you would get that money refunded to you because, like I've said before, land is not replaceable. And the VA, the way they do it is when you go for a home loan, they separate the cost of the land from the cost of the building that's put on it. And that's what's supposed to be done with the cities with taxes and things like that. You get the dwelling and the building and everything, and you get the land value. But a lot of times when people go to get a mobile home package, they're paying a lot more than what that property is even worth, and they're taxed at a higher rate than what it's really worth. Because let's say you put a $50,000 mobile home on a $30,000 property, that should be $80,000. And then the time they get through with improvements and everything, you could be paying over $150,000 for, you know, a lot of people. And, you know, I just think there's some unfairness in that. And Trump said he was looking into some things regarding housing. And I know a lot of people try to get loan modifications under Obama. They did get those loan modifications and lost their home, and they're trying now again to be first-time home buyers after 3-year, I think it's 3-year limit or something like that. But I just found that interesting, with Greensboro offering the $25,000 down payment assistance.
You're on Talk Line. Good morning. You're on Talk Line.
Good morning, Harry.
Hey there.
Well, it's raining again.
Is it?
Ain't that something?
It was raining when I left the house, and it was raining when I got to the radio station, so I didn't know it was still raining.
Well, the good Lord knows what's best for all of us, but he sure has watered us a whole lot lately.
Well, you always got to make up for the drought. When we had some drought a while back.
Yes, we did.
This is making up for it. That's all it is.
Yeah. I heard everybody talking about hospitals and stuff like that. I always like to throw my 2 cents in. I've had more than my share of hospital stays. I kept a running tally of it. And the last time I looked, the insurance companies had paid out upwards of $1.25 million on me for half a dozen different things they had done to me. And if it hadn't been for the insurance company, I wouldn't have a thing in the world. But I will tell you the truth. I'm one of these kind of nitpicking people. When I come home from
Don't say.
No, I thought you had picked that up on all the hundreds of conversations we've had. I tell them I want a detailed bill. And then when I get that detailed bill, whether it's 20 pages, I'll sit down with a calendar and a ruler. I check my charges. And I'll just give you one example. They were charging me for an aspirin. And they were charging me $20 for one 325 milligram aspirin. And they did that every day for about 2 weeks. There was only one problem, Harry. I was incubated. And if you don't know what incubated is, that's where they take that long snake and they shove it down your throat. And that's how you breathe. And then, you're fed the sugar water through your arm. There was no place to put that aspirin. And I kicked about it. I called them up. And they said, well, Mr. Wright, we'll check into it. And in the meantime, I called my insurance company and I discussed it with them. And they said they were going to send an inquiry also. And just to put it plain, to cut to the quick, they took those off. Because you can't give somebody an aspirin that's incubated. There ain't nowhere to put it. And everybody ought to sit down with their bills and just look at them. Take your time, because that's your money, and read your bills. I had another time. I went over to a hospital not far from here, and they told me I had to pay $1,000 before they would work on me. That was the leftover from the 80% charge that my insurance company would pay. And I wrote them a check for, I think it was real specific, $1,015. Well, about 3 months later, I paid it with a credit card. I got a receipt. And then when I left, I stapled the receipt to the paid bill. Well, about 3 months, I got this bill, and it was exactly $1,015. And I called them up and I talked real nice to them. No, you owe it. That's on something else. And I was real polite. It never do any good to lose your temper with those people. You just tell them you got a receipt. You tell them it was paid by a credit card. So, you got all kinds of receipts when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, they turned me into a credit thing. So every time they called, I talked to them. I said, I don't owe it. I've got a paid receipt. I took pictures of it. I faxed it to them. And this went on for about 6 months. And then finally it stopped. So, from one old man to another bunch of old people listening to me, when you get your bills, you pay them, but you never throw away the receipt.
222-9224. 222-9224. Glad to have you along. Hope you will give us a call and join in.
Good morning, Harry.
I am well. I hope you are.
I want to address Charlie a little bit yesterday. Charlie, I don't understand. It doesn't matter to me who's president, okay? And I'm sure it doesn't matter to you who's president. Whoever's president, you want the president to do what's the best thing for the people in the country. Okay? You want him to be, everybody to be successful. You should never be jealous of successful people. I mean, people are, that's a reward for working hard and taking risks and all kinds of stuff. But Charlie seems to, I've never seen people, and this is not just Charlie, in this country who want to see the country fail. They want to see this fall apart. They want to see the whole country go broke. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. I know you hate Trump, but that's one man. Why would you want your grandchildren or your children or your family, any of your family members or any friends or any acquaintances that you know or anybody? Why would you want the country to fail, which makes them fail? And this stuff he talks about with, Trump's going, he's a lame duck, and he's this, and he's that, he's this, and he's that. He ain't going to do anything, blah, 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 blah. Well, now, that's not true. Now, if you want to know why Biden was criticized on this radio program all the time, because he was doing a lot of bad things. He was opening up the borders. He was doing crazy bills like the Green New Deal, wasting trillions of dollars, and opening up programs for people that weren't even citizens. And, 65% of the federal budget is entitlement tax. And that 65% is most likely the culprit for our trillions of dollars of debt. And you know it, and I know it. And I pulled up just one not giveaway program, but one program that the government offers. And it was Medicaid. And I looked at the demographics of the Medicaid. Okay? In the United States, and this might not be completely up to date, non-Hispanic whites account for 39% of people that are on Medicaid. That's not 39% of the population. That's 39% of the people that are on. All right. Well, the white population makes up about 65% of the population. Well, then you go to the next group, the next highest group, Hispanic. 30.8% of the people on Medicaid are Hispanic. Okay? They make up, we don't even know what percentage of the population they make up. But let's say it's 50 million. All right? Well, that percentage of 50 million, divided by 360 million people, that's a low percentage. All right, and then the African American black individuals count for 20.8%. And to say that there are more whites on Medicaid than on entitlement programs than blacks, yeah, the number's different, but the percentage of the population that's on that, using that aid, is way higher. Okay, so I mean, what I'm saying is, it shocked me. Actually, it really shocked me when I saw that 30% of Hispanics are on 30% of the Medicaid paid out in this country is on Hispanics. Almost as much as that are white people. Now, how is that possible?
Well, because we, for the last so many years, have been letting people flood across the border. That's why. That is a program that is supposed to help poor people, and the people that are sneaking across the border, many of them are poor, and they end up figuring out a way to get them qualified for Medicaid.
Well, I know exactly how they get qualified, and you do too. I mean, the Hispanic population that's come over here, a lot of them are, work for cash money, so their incomes don't show any very much income, and that puts them in the qualification level. Now, the problem is the ones that come over here illegally, and then they have a child, then the child becomes an automatic citizen. Well, then they can apply for Medicaid for the child based on their income, and the child gets on. All right, so, and then we have this problem of paying Medicaid, providing Medicaid for children that are not legal. And the system in some states is allowing, adults that are not legal to sign up for it. And, I can't see why there's a problem with people saying, oh, you're going to take all these people off of Medicaid. You're going to take their health insurance away. Well, if you're not legally here and you're on Medicaid, or you illegally came over here and started having children, and then, you're out here illegally earning the cash income and showing very little income, and then you qualify. We can't afford this aid.
Of course not. And that's why in the big beautiful bill, they kept saying that they're trying to cut, these Medicare and Medicaid things. No, they're not trying to cut it. What they're trying to do is keep people who are not eligible for it to have it. That's where the cuts were in the big beautiful bill.
Yeah, these numbers reflect this. And they reflect, hey, how is 30% of the people, Medicaid is a tons of money. Tons of money. I don't know exactly what the budget is, but I guarantee you, it's over a trillion. Okay, I guarantee it's over a trillion. And, we can't do this. That's just Medicaid. 30% of the people that are on Medicaid are Hispanic. I'm not saying anything against Hispanics, but something has gone totally haywire with our system. And, letting all these people in here has created a disaster.
It really has. And our immigration system is broken. It is completely and totally broken.
Well, even if it's broken, you could have stopped the people from coming. Trump proved that. You could have stopped it. You might not have an immigration program that says, okay, you get automatic citizenship when you walk across the border.
Yeah.
But you still could have stopped it.
Sure, absolutely.
And why you intentionally let millions and millions of people come into this country and then look at the percentage that are going on entitlement program. We can't afford it.
That's right. All right, appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, take care. 222-9224. 222-9224. We've known this. You know, one of the things that many people that were criticizing the last 5 or 6 administrations for letting people across the border and not doing anything about it. People coming here illegally. You know, we don't actually know how many people are here illegally. We think it's you know, the number that people keep batting around is 12 million. I think it's more than that. I think it's double that, 24 million or more that are here illegally, and they either came across the border illegally or they overstayed their visa. Now, a lot of people do that. They come into the country legally, and then they don't leave when the time to leave comes. They just stay here. They didn't come into the country illegally. They came into the country legally. They showed their passport at their port of entry and came in just like, you know, I went and visited Germany and Austria and Holland. They just let you in, you walk around and you know, you leave and go home. What happens, people come to the United States for a visit, a legal visit, and then stay. They overstay their visa. So we don't know how many people are here. We guess, you know, we keep, you know, coming up with these numbers. And the census helps us in some ways come up with a number, but is it the number? Who knows? But one of the reasons why that we spend so much money on Medicare is because there are a lot of people getting Medicare that aren't eligible for it, and that's what the big beautiful bill wanted to stop. The people that are ineligible for that social program need to stop getting it, so that the people that are eligible and are entitled to that money and that help and that care get it. That's what that's supposed to be. Now, remember, and we talked about this before, in the United States, when you talk about cutting the budget, when you create a budget in the United States, you assume a 10% increase. It's called indexing. So when you say, well, we're going to cut the budget by 5%, that's not a cut. That's an increase in 5% because you assume 10%. So the only way that you can actually spend less money, and see, the people up in Washington, the bureaucrats, the elected officials, all the people up there have come up with this way to scold you for cutting the budget when you're actually not cutting it. It's called indexing. It's terrible. They fuss at you because you want to cut this program when actually you're not cutting it. What you're doing is you're cutting the rate of increase. And if you really wanted to cut it, you'd have to cut it more than 10%. All right, we've got 13 minutes before 10 o'clock, 13 before 10. It's Talk Line. Glad to have you along. Hope you'll give us a call. Join in the conversation. Let me tell you about Deal Law. Deal Law. They are at 1153 Huckman Mill Road here in Burlington, right across from Mayflower Seafood. Now, if you've got some legal things you want to talk to an attorney about, talk to one of the attorneys there. J. Ray Deal, one of the other attorneys at Deal Law. Now, you can get an appointment. Call them, 336-584-4448. Call that number. Make an appointment. Talk to them about setting up a will. A simple will is what most people need.
My town for a while. Actually, got back in last night, overslept. But I woke up to hear that last call, so lucky me. But I want to talk about some things I have heard, but I want to dedicate most of this call to it's me, and I'll get to that in a moment. But either way you chalk it up, the white population receives more of entitlement than any other group. Also, a couple of things I was told, I was told, but I'm simply recording. We keep talking about DEI, and I wish people would take the time to look up in this country who are the big recipients of DEI. The right is good at taking information and using it after turning it into misinformation to be used as a hammer. 60% of DEI in this country is received by white women. When you break down the demographics, the blacks come in number 6 of recipients of DEI. That's fact. So when people keep talking about DEI, Carolina cutting DEI, and Jim, one day this week or last week, I forgot to record it, yelling about DEI, what Trump is doing to DEI, it is 60% of it is white women. Those are facts. But people, when they say it, it's just like the welfare queen in the 80s under Reagan. It's used as a hammer, and it goes through to show a black woman as the welfare queen did in the 80s. And DEI is black of getting all these benefits, taking all of them from white. DEI, but the facts are that 60% of the recipient of DEI is white. The conversation about, and I heard Charlie's conversation or response to Barry and other people talking about this fight that was in Cincinnati. If somebody would just took a little bit of time and did research, what I saw was horrible and disgusting, and thought those people should be locked up. I remember when Reginald Denny was pulled out of his truck during a Rodney King riots. I thought it was horrible and disgusting. Not that there's no place for that in a civilized country, but I didn't know the origins of this Cincinnati situation. Those people were Russian immigrants who were intoxicated and were saying lewd and horrible and racist things towards people in that. First it started in a bar, and then the male slapped a female woman. Now, I know we have some type of gentleman that's on this show. If you whip a female, Jim may not understand this, but if you whip a female and he is slapped and she is slapped by a drunk man, regardless of what color he is, yeah, it's going to be a fight. You should defend that female. But that wasn't told. But also what wasn't told on here is the black man in Carolina, North Carolina, who was taking some truckload of something, and the white guys basically pushed his truck, used bulldozers to push his truck over, threatened him to kill him, and that was all on video, but that ain't going to be told. That's not going to be told. So when Speaker X retaliated with all the things that happened in the past, then we get a character to say people can't get over the past. People live in the past. What Speaker X did was retaliate and talked about what they won't talk about. And the person who won't get over the past is always talking about a Confederate statue and ride around with a Confederate flag of conquered people who tried to overthrow this government and wants to get up and jump on something to ring a bell, but says people want to live in the past. They don't think about themselves living in the past. But when they live in the past, they call it heredity. So, you know, those are just the things. Then we had the guy that talked about not paying any taxes. So, sir, if your house ever catches on fire, don't you call the firemen. If you ever need the police, and I know everybody that's massive got 9 guns to protect themselves, don't you call the police. And if everybody didn't do anything to you, don't you go to the courthouse. And if you riding down the road with that big truck flag on the back of your motorcycle going to another event, well, don't you hit a pothole and get mad, because that's what, you don't want to pay taxes. Those what all those things go to pay taxes. Mm-hmm. You pay taxes, whether they're high or low, whether you agree with them or not, but you pay taxes to live in a civilized society. So if you want to go move into a cave and don't call on any services of the city or the state, if you ever need them, then you go do that. But if you want to receive water, receive fire protection, receive police protection, have paved roads, and protection from other countries, then you're going to pay taxes. That is the dumbness of the conversation. And then we are told on this station, and I'm going to get to it's me in a second, because
you're at 6 minutes now, so just...
Oh, at 6 minutes, well...
Take that into account, okay? Finish up.
Okay, well, I'll call tomorrow but it's me. But I will say this, last thing. We keep saying that Medicaid is not being cut. It's still will Oklahoma. As I said, when I did this research in 2012, when we was talking about Obamacare, how Obamacare would benefit the small rural hospitals, when I looked at that information, we're now having the Medicaid cuts, Medicare and Medicaid cuts. Still will Oklahoma, there is a small rural hospital that is being closed because of the Medicare cut.
Okay.
James Langford, our senator, the very Republican senator from Missouri, if there were not any Medicare cuts of working people, they would not be introducing bills to curb the Medicaid cuts. If all it was doing was cutting waste, fraud, and abuse.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. One of the sad things, one of the terrible things, and what I think Congress needs to take a look at, and that's what he was talking about. There's some congressmen that are doing this. You know, the fact that hospitals are closing because people who are getting Medicare and Medicaid illegally aren't getting it anymore. I understand that's a problem. There are going to be some clinics, some free healthcare places, stuff like that because they're not going to get money from people who aren't eligible for Medicaid, some of those things will close. That's a problem. We need to address that separately. The fact that there are people getting this service illegally, we also need to fix. Now, the consequences of us stopping giving illegal individuals these services, if it affects good services that do help other people, then they're going to have to stop doing it, and they're not going to be able to help the people that are eligible. We need to figure out how to fix that. That's a problem, and that is exactly what we send people to Congress to fix. You don't have to complain. You can say, okay, we understand that with the big beautiful bill, they're going to be cutting Medicare fraud and abuse, and that may close some clinics or some hospitals because they're not going to be serving those people anymore and getting that money that was illegal to begin with. Let's see if we can come up with a way that these organizations, like the hospital in Oklahoma that he keeps talking about, can we come up with a way to help those organizations that are being hurt by the fact that many of the people that go there are getting services illegally. We're on Talk Line.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
Just fine. I listened to Jim, and Jim's out of touch with reality. And he says reading the name of all these companies that signed on for Trump's tariff. I want to ask Jim, what did they sign? These people signed nothing that's binding. They signed nothing that they have to live up to. And the next president in those countries can change on a thin dime. So can the next president of the United States. A company would be silly and irresponsible to move to the United States with all the uncertainty about tariffs, workers, and everything else. Apple has already said the infrastructure and their labor is not here. They will assemble some things here, but they're not going to move here. And all of these other countries, it's unrealistic that they are going to buy all this energy from America. And it's unrealistic to think these people, all these companies, going to move here, move their manufacturing, all that billions of dollars cost them, and then somebody else become president, or there's a recession, everything's so hit. No, it's not going to happen here. You can live in fantasy land all you want, but it's not going to happen. And yes, I live in America, Jim. You're the one who live in fantasy land and fantasizing that you're this great Christian and you can see into the future by what's going to be happening in America with Trump. Trump's putting on a show. Trump's not even sure that Trump knows that this stuff is not going to work. And all this stuff in this big, beautiful bill, most of it's going to be gone in 28. Trump did a lot of this stuff, postpone it after the midterms, open the people will put Republicans in. It's not going to happen. And in other words, Jim, you don't know what you're talking about. You're the one who's living in fantasy land, a world of make-believe. Keep on dreaming, buddy. And so is Barry. Barry cannot get over that white people are the biggest recipients of the entitlements. And he cannot get over that people disagree with Trump's policy, not because they hate him, they disagree with the policy. He will tell you, all the people will tell you, all the Republicans will tell you they didn't hate Biden, they hated his policy. They didn't hate Obama, they hated his policy. But you can't disagree with Trump about hating Trump. That's bull. That's bull. I see all presidents as the same. They can only do so much. Congress is in charge of the money. All of the things that Trump's promising, not going to happen. I don't like Trump the way he does things. I do not like it that he went in and fired all the those people, federal workers. These are people, mortgages, families, and all of that stuff. He went in and disrupted, just telling people, look, you got 15 minutes to get your stuff and get out. I don't like a president like that. No, that's irresponsible. And that's why the people are not going to be moving any companies here, because Trump might pull the rug anytime.
Okay.
Anytime.
Mm-hmm. All right. Appreciate it.
And let me say one more thing.
Sure.
Barry. I'll tell you tomorrow.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you. 222-9224. Well, Charlie, you might be right, but also Jim might be right on Talk Line. Back again tomorrow.